Hello, watercolor card artists. We had a wonderful question on our group discussion about how to paint waves or ocean. So I thought I would show you like 3 ways that I like to make waves. This one is like the regular simple, like almost abstract, very expressive, calming sea, right? You have your surf, your midground and background, and it's just an easy way to paint waves. I love this way. Jean Haynes, this is a style from Jean Haynes. And then I have a more abstract way of making waves where it's more like indicative to watercolor, and I wanted to show like how watercolor can really make beautiful waves. And so there's that way. And then my third way is stylized. Like, how can I take painting waves and just totally stylize the waves? So I chose to just do painted lines on the background, and then I had these cute little guys that I was just waiting for the right time to use, and this is a stencil and die set, and so I used that and I just made a really fun little card out of it. So come along with me. We're gonna make all 3 of these cards. It's gonna be super fun, and happy painting. Let's get started. Hi! Here are some ways I like to paint waves. This is a more abstract version of the waves. It's very artistic, it's very expressive. I think you could totally make this into a card and just stamp a sentiment, like an inspirational affirmation or something, and send it as even a postcard. It's very abstract though, so it's very artistic, but I love it. This is one of my favorite ways to paint waves, and I'll show you that technique. The other technique is more of a realistic technique, and it's just a simple, you can change the color scheme to make it look brighter or less, and it is very much more of a Chinese brushstroke sort of, like you're just creating the essence of the paint of the card, and so I really like that. And then I just added some birds. And then a very stylized way that I like to paint waves is just with lines and blue color, and I will show you how I like to do that, and then I'll add cute little elements to go with it. So it's very, very stylized, but so much fun. Come along with me. We're gonna paint. It's gonna be awesome. We're gonna feel good afterwards. So let's get started. Okay, for the first one, I'm gonna do the simple beach scene. You can make it as colorful or as monochromatic as you want. This is fairly monochromatic for me. I just have some watercolor paper that is at 5 1/4 by 4, and it will fit onto an A2 size card base. And what we're going to do is we're just going to start working from the background to the foreground. And I'm actually using some like the Shimncke super granulation, and this is the deep sea trio. So this is like a cerulean blue, and I'm going to start with the sky. And I really love this because it's super granulating, so it makes for some really pretty watercolor. I'm also using a beautiful brush, an Escoto 20 round rigger brush. If you have not tried a big rigger brush, I recommend you do. The bristles are so long and just beautiful to paint with. Okay, now it's time to make our horizon line. And for this I want a really dark line, and I think I'm going to go about here. Now I always like to measure my horizon line, so this is at like just above 1 3/4, and then on this side I will do the same. I want to make sure that we are at here, and then I will even sometimes just kind of fill in the gap And I like having a see-through ruler because then I can see exactly where I'm at, but I oftentimes don't mess with that. It's just something I do. If you want a horizon line, that's perfect. Now, I don't need to make a completely straight line, but it just helps make the line perfect. Okay, and then I can go in darker, which I'm gonna have to. Don't paint above the line that you just had. Try not to. Alright, now for the fun part, I'm gonna erase that hard line. I don't want any harsh lines right now. No lines to my watercolor. Now I can start to play. So I have a little bit of this wet water. This watercolor is just a tad bit wet, and I'm going to go in straight with my like a turquoise blue, and I'm just going to go right in, right up here, and just underneath it. And then I'm going to break it a little bit because the waves break right there. It's not a continuous line usually. And I will let the watercolor do its thing. Painting water is really quite easy if we know how to manipulate it. So I don't want a harsh line there. And then I'm going to go back in and I'm going to do one more really thick line, and it's going to go kind of like at a diagonal. And I'm even going to use my dark like violet and really make that line happen. And I'm going to do the same here. But I'm going to make sure I get some of that surf, because that's the best part. Okay, that looks good. Now I can go back in and add that darkerness, that darker value. I'm going to add some more of this turquoise. And I'm going to go back in here just a tad, just a little bit. I'm just adding a little. And a lot of this is practice. I'm using like a tea-like consistency for most of this. I see that this water kind of wants to do its own thing. I don't really want that line. So I'm going to add water to this whole line, and I'm going to have to add more of that darker violet color. And I want to skate across the page. I don't want to dab, I want to skate or dance across the page. Now I can go back in with this turquoise again. So pretty. And just underneath it, I see this beautiful bloom happening right here. You can kind of see it. And I want to keep that bloom because that's just lovely. So that's my plan. And I couldn't have planned it, it just happened, so I'm going with it. And maybe I don't want it like through the whole page, but right there is really pretty. So we'll go with that. Maybe this is just a wave that just crashed. Yeah, we're gonna go with that. Okay. And when you play with your watercolor, you can really get some beautiful effects. That's what I love about watercolors so much. And because I'm preserving this bloom right up here, right there, I'm going to make this edge as soft as I can. I don't want too hard edges. Just that one hard edge is perfect. Okay, I'm really liking that. And now I think I'm going to go back in with this light blue, and I'm just going to kind of add some blue right here. This is like a thicker consistency, probably like a, if I had to, it's like a buttery consistency. It's not as thick. And then I'll just, with my water brush, with my brush, my clean brush, I'm just kind of smoothing it all out. So I get this beautiful wavy beach scene just like that. Hopefully that helps you see how to paint a beach scene. And then I'll add, once it's all dry, then I'll go in and just add my little V-birds. And then I have space right here to write a sentiment, or maybe over here I'll probably crop it a little bit so it'll fit on an A2 size. This is just a little bit longer, but that's okay, it still works. Alright, moving on. Here is another fun way to paint waves. This one is my favorite. I am using Cobalt Blue, Cobalt. I'm using Turquoise, ultramarine, or phthalo turquoise. Either one. If you have ultramarine turquoise or phthalo turquoise, there's not much difference. Either one will do it. And then a ultramarine, and then indigo. So I have 4 different hues going on right now, and this is so much fun. It's very similar to the one I just did, but it's very artistic. Like you can make this into a card going portrait wise or landscape wise. It's just a really fun panel to make. And I could even cut this in half and have one panel here and one panel here with some background paper that just has like a sentiment or something. It'd be way pretty. Okay, so we're gonna start with Cobalt Blue. Cobalt Blue is very close to ultramarine or cerulean, but I like the cobalt because it's kind of like a neutral blue, and so I find myself using that actually more and more these days. So what I like to do is I like to start with a band, and I'm not thinking about, I'm just putting color down, just a strip of blue. Then I'm going to take my clean brush and I'm going to make sure that there's no harsh line. I don't want no harsh line. And if I'm feeling particularly artsy, I will just add some more of that blue and let it run. I always love watching blue colors mingle. Alright, now I'm going to my next line, and I'm just gonna get some water on the paper. It doesn't have to be anything, just so I can see where the blue's going. Now I'm doing the same thing, but I'm just letting the water, and I have my watercolor paper tilted at an angle because I want it to move around on the paper. That's the whole point. So if you like to paint with your easel elevated at an angle, this is a wonderful, wonderful technique to play with. Alright, now I'm feeling good about that. I'm going to just let that be. Like, this is so simple. You're just adding color, water, color, water, and you're doing this dance, so to speak. Like if I were not teaching it, it could almost be like I'm dancing with my brush. It's so fun. Alright, let's go into, I love this phthalo turquoise. Oh my gosh. For summer and water and beach, I cannot get enough of this. And this is a Daniel Smith pigment, and it just goes wherever it pleases, and I just let it do its thing. I don't even try to control it, because it's so pretty when you don't control it. You can paint skies the same way. This is the same way I paint skies. I just use different blues. Blue watercolor is perfect for sky and ocean and any other kind of water, especially if you want that beautiful watercolor look to it. Alright, now I can go into my ultramarine. I did choose ultramarine because I feel like ultramarine is like the epitome for ocean. I don't know, maybe it's not, but I'm going to do the same thing. And then I'm just going to go right into my indigo. And I'm going to erase my hard edges with clean water. Isn't that looking really awesome? This one looks too perfect. Like the edge was just, there was quite the edge there, so I didn't want an edge. And it's okay if your paper warps. I often plan for that, and I just kind of let it dry and do its thing. And I see that I need some more cobalt over here. Okay, we're going to let this dry. And then we're going to come back to it and we're going to add even deeper, darker versions of these colors so we can get those rich colors. Right now we're not quite there. We need another layer of that because it'll dry later. So while this is waiting to dry, I will show you a very fun, stylized way of painting. So this is a fun way to just paint, like if you're looking for a feel, a beachy feel or a watery feel. I'm using a filbert brush. You can also use a flat brush. It really doesn't matter. You just need a little bit of a flat tip. And I got some indigo on my finger that I don't really want on my paper. So cleaning that up. Okay, let's roll with this. So in my palette, I have a purple, I have ultramarine, I have a indigo, I have lavender, I have cobalt blue, and turquoise. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 colors. I'm not going to do all 6. I'm going to start with my lightest, which is lavender, and actually is a really pretty blue color. I always think lavender is like a floral color, and it can be, but it can also work really well for water. So I just start, and I want to keep my lines fairly straight. It doesn't always happen, but I don't want it to be jaggedy. Okay, so there's one, and I might even just do one more line. Usually I do about 2 colors, but that just gives it some unity. If I put a lot of pressure on, my brush stroke gets a little bit thicker. I think this would be a fun card to make and send to anyone who just likes like modern art or something whimsical and fun. Now I think I'll go on to Cobalt, and I already have some Cobalt on my palette, so I'm just going to use my Cobalt that's on my palette. I'll zoom out just a tad bit so you can see. And there's my Cobalt. I probably went a little bit too dark, but that's okay. That is so lovely. It's fun. Alright, now I did actually do turquoise, so I just went down my palette, and I think I'll mix a little bit with my Cobalt. It's not really going to change much, but then I just have a more fluid. It's okay if your lines aren't perfect either. That's kind of why you do this practice, is to just have fun with it. No one's going to know that it's not perfect. Alright, now I'm going to go with ultramarine. Actually, I really love this color, so I'm going to dilute it even more, and we're going to get a lighter turquoise. One more lighter turquoise. Ooh, that's going to be pretty. Awesome. Okay, now we can go with ultramarine. Ultramarine is one of my favorite blues. Like, I would be sad if I could never find ultramarine ever again. I use it for my greens and my water. I just use ultramarine all the time. And then I did use indigo, but I diluted it a lot. And I think I even added it into my turquoise, so it wasn't so starkly indigo. And so that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm going to do one more at the very bottom. Okay, awesome. Now what I can do is I made these cute little guys and I'm going to put them on this card panel. Something like that. And then I can go and find a sentiment or something. It's just going to be super adorable and so cute. So I'm going to get my stuff ready to, I'm going to let this dry a little bit more and then I'll glue these on, maybe find a sentiment, make it into a card. It's going to be super fun. So that is the plan for that, and I will show you how I made these cute little guys in just a second. Okay. Alright, so these two panels are dried and they're looking good. This one's looking particularly well. I don't think I need to do much. Look at that granulation. That is just lovely. I think I could add a little bit more blue to the sky, which I will do that right now. Thought I had it thick enough, dark enough, blue enough. Do not. That's an easy fix. Okay. Maybe I'll have a little bit of wispy clouds in the sky. That'll work. Okay. I see a little bit of darkness that I kind of want to make sure we get. So I'm going to start with the turquoise that we just used. And now this is just kind of like you're just adding to the painting. I don't want this to be a hard edge, so I'm going to paint and then get rid of one of the edges with a clean damp brush. I'm going to do the same to this violet. I'm really loving the lightness of this, but maybe I want it to get darker here and I want it to really shine right there. And then I'm just gonna like use my eraser like my brush like an eraser and make it happen. All right, this one needs a little bit of blue. I feel like right here. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm gonna clean this edge up. Oh, look at that. And I'm going to clean this edge up too a little bit. I don't want it to be a complete line. After all, we are dealing with water. And we are not. Yeah. It's just like the essence of an ocean, right? Or of a beach. You're just, in your mind, you're thinking, how would I paint a wave? And then you just paint it. Alright, and then towards the end... There. Now we can just add our birds and it'll be just lovely. This is how I love to paint waves and water. And I love to be at the beach or at the lake or on a dock and just paint water. It is one of my favorite things to do. Alright, that's looking really good and I'm really quite pleased with it. I do see I could make this a little more dramatic, and after it cresses, the wave crests, you get like that dark look behind the wave, so that's what I'm going for right here. Your eye always wants to see the contrast, so sometimes we have to take a step back and look and see, did I get enough contrast? And if you didn't, you just go back and add more paint to it. Leave your whites alone, but add more contrast. There, I'm loving that. Isn't that beautiful? And it gives it a bit more depth to it as well. Alright, I think We're almost done. I see this part that I really love. I'm gonna make it dark, dark. I think that's really gonna add to the feel of these waves. Erase that line, that hard edge that I just created. I don't want that hard edge. I just want the pigment to just, you know, do its thing. I bought this wonderful pigment for it to do its thing. That's what I'm doing. I'm just adding value to it. There we go. That's perfect. Now all I have to do is let it dry, and then I'll paint in some birds like I did here, and it's gonna work out just fine. Alright, and now for this one, I do need to add a little bit more. I need to fix this little bloom right here. You can kind of see this bloom right there. And then I just want to make it darker and a little bit more like waves. So when I go to my second layer, what I want to do is I want to make sure I get my darks darker and keep my whites light. And it's that simple. So what I mean is I'm going to go with my Cobalt blue, and it's like a buttery consistency. It's really thick. And I am just going to paint over wherever there's blue. And I'm not thinking about it too much. I'm enjoying the process. Now I'm going to just clean up my edge. I can even take away some of that pigment I just added, and I get a darker background. I'm going to do the same thing to the next one. Ooh, I'm loving that bloom. Okay, now for this one I added a little bit more pigment, but that's okay. I'm just gonna soften my edges, get my line, preserve my whites. That is happening. All right. And then I'm gonna soften this edge. I see it just a little bit. It's not watery, it's just harder. It's a harder edge. There. Now I'm going to go back in with this turquoise. It's this beautiful, oh my gosh, I could just bottle it up and use it every painting. So I'm going to go back in. I'm going to really just dance my brush across the paper. Oh, that is so darn lovely. That phthalo turquoise, just, oh. There we go. And every time you do this, it's gonna look a little bit different, and that's okay. That's what we want. And I love ultramarine because of its granulation, and that's what it did. So I'm gonna add back some of that value. Hopefully we can still kind of see the granulation at times. It is just a lovely pigment to work with. And now, I'm doing the same thing. A lot of it is just playing, practicing. It takes a lot of practice. Playful practice, perfect playful practice. Okay, and now I can go back in with the dark blue, my indigo. And maybe I'm going to have this blend into the blue. There we go. I'm going to tilt this a little bit. I definitely want to keep that white space white. So I'm going to clean off my brush. Just let it do its thing. I'm going to do it over here as well. Okay, and I'm going to call this one done. That is so pretty. Those are pretty waves. I do feel like there's this indigo wave is maybe too much. We'll see. think it'll look alright once it's dried. It just looks darker because it's not dried yet. But there we go. There's another way to paint waves. Okay. Let's paint our beautiful little, our nice little birdies. I got just a little bit of indigo on my palette. And I'm going to say right about here. Right about here is where I want it to land. So here's the thing I love. If you don't like the shape of your bird, and I'm just doing V. I call them my V birds. I don't know. Is there a better way to make birds? Probably. But I'm going to give this as a card. If they want to frame it, awesome. But I'm not going to stress out too much about it, because it's a card. I kind of like that. But if you are like, oh, I don't like where this bird is, like I'm not particularly fond of how I had that wing, I'm gonna, because I am using such a light color, indigo is really good at lifting up, which is another reason why I like to use indigo. I can lift easier than I could with a phthalo. Yeah, something like that. And maybe I should have made it go down into the water a little bit. Alright, if you know me, you know I love using stamps in my cards. I found the perfect sentiment set for these wave cards. I actually didn't know what I was going to do with these cards, so I'm glad I found a sentiment. And I really love the Be Still and Know That I Am God. This is from Be Still, from Tailored Expressions. It's a wonderful, wonderful stamp set, and I'm going to use the Be Still and Know That I Am God. This Misty has been a game changer for me. If you know me, I use this Misty all the time. And I really want to look for ways, like I want to be able to just put my stamp on and go. I don't want to fiddle faddle with it too much. And I want to be able to stamp them both on the same time. So I think I'm just going to like stamp this, put this like right here. Let the watercolor do its thing. Like in my mind's eye, I'm thinking that I would send this to somebody and they would like have it on their fridge or on their mantle for a while. Like I want it to be a piece of artwork, and so I think that just keeping it simple and maybe even just signing your name to it would be nice. This is just a navy ink pad. I really don't know what color of ink it is because I will re-ink with whatever color I feel like using. So it's probably a couple different inks, but the ink pad is from Ranger. You can get them all over. And I'm going to stamp it. Sometimes I have to stamp it twice. Yep. And it might be that I need a black. I was hoping that navy would work. But sometimes I have to go with a darker one instead of a navy. I think that will work. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. And I think next time I will cut this, I will make this a little bit more in the corner. So I'm going to stamp off all the ink so it doesn't get on my card. Whoops, sorry guys. There. Now there's no more ink on my ink, so now I can just kind of go in and stamp this again. I'm going to stamp it right there. Okay, let's stamp it, and we'll stamp it twice. There. And the type looks good. It doesn't look crooked. That's always my problem once I unset it. I have to keep it. And it could have been that I just didn't like how dark that teal was right there. That's okay. Yep, that's perfect. I'm going to stamp this probably 2 more times to really get a good impression. It does take a little while. I have a church member that is going through cancer right now. She's my age, and so I'm trying to encourage her as much as I can. And on the Watercolor Card group, a member said like she spent like every day she would give her cancer friend a card. She eventually cancer took over, but at her funeral they had all of these cards that her friend gave her, and she didn't know that the family was going to do that, and it just brings to mind how important it is to make cards. And so anyways, if this could be, I don't know if I could give a card to this friend of mine every day, but at least I could do like once a week or something. And how pretty would that be? And I'll put this on some white cardstock, and I think I'll be done with that, and I think that'll just be a perfect card to send to somebody. And again, sometimes I think less is more, especially when it comes to watercolor. I've always been a simple watercolor artist. I like to do my thing, get in, get out, and let the watercolor really speak for itself. So anyways, this set was from Be Still from Tailored Expressions. It has a bunch of different scriptures on it, and I really love the typography of all of them. Alright, so for the second card, I really don't need to do much. We're gonna work on this. This is just getting some of the foam onto the little guys so they look cute. And now I have You're a Lifesaver. I don't quite know where I'm going to put these, so you guys gotta decide. I think I want him somewhere here, and I feel like this guy could be here. I don't know if we need all three of them. I might just end up doing 2. But I like having all 3 of them. So we'll see. Okay, when I was looking at the watercolor panel, this one's not so bad. Like, it's okay, but I know I messed this up. So I'm gonna this was the one that I didn't love the shape, so I'm just gonna add my own, and this is an indigo watercolor pencil from Derwent. And I'm just gonna do that. And while I have it, I'm also gonna just write my name and sign it. It just needed a little bit more. And I decided not to put a sentiment on this one because you can leave your cards to be totally open-ended. And I'm just going to do L. Christensen right there. See it? Some people are like, where's your signature? And I really like this one as well. And so I'm going to do the same. I'm just going to do L. Christensen. There we go. And now it's still watercolor. This is just a watercolor pencil. So there's a trick